Hello, everybody. My name is Donna Toski, and I am the co-founder of the Between Men and Women Couples Retreats and the founder of the Spark Communication Success System for Couples. And so I'm really happy to be talking to you today about something that concerns all of us that are in relationship. It's about trust and connection and how to protect your relationship from doubt, indifference, and infidelity. So whoever's out there, it would be awesome if you leave a comment and say hello. That would be great. And if you have any questions, leave them in the chat section there below. Yeah, let me know that you're here and where you're viewing from. That would be awesome. So how to protect your relationship from doubt, indifference, and infidelity. Well, first, I guess, I'll tell you a bit about myself, something that many of you, most of you that know me probably don't know about me, and that my background is actually science. And I'm a chemical technologist. And so I'm really interested, of course, in chemistry. And for those of you that hate science or don't like it, I get that. But, it's cool in that so much of our biology and our physiology dictates what happens in our relationship and how we behave and how we react to one another. So I'm going to be giving you some science. I'm going to be giving you some science today. And here's the thing. I do retreats, and I've done like a zillion of them. Been doing them for almost 15 years, probably 13, 14 is more accurate, but heading for 15. And when people call me to see if what I have is for them, I ask them, what's going on? What's going on with you? And usually by the time they get to me or they get to counseling, which, I'm a counseling alternative, there's like one of maybe three things going on, one of two or three things going on. This is what they say to me. They say, I feel really disconnected. We are like two roommates. We're living under the same roof as roommates. Or they'll say, man, we just can't stop fighting. Every time we talk, we start to fight. Or they'll say, there's been infidelity. It's pretty much how it goes. Very rarely do we have couples that come in saying, we're doing awesome and we're doing this just to deepen our connection. Happens, but it's not that common. And so it's interesting when I speak to each person when they come into the retreat, and I ask women, what's going on for you? And invariably, besides the, either we're disconnected or there's been infidelity, the bottom line, this is what I hear a lot from women. I can't trust my partner. And it's interesting, this notion of trust and what that means. I remember working with a couple, and he said to me on the Sunday of the retreat, wow, she has kept saying to me, she can't trust me. She can't trust me. She doesn't trust me. And I never really understood, what is she saying? Like, what does that mean? And how do I gain her trust? Okay. And so there's this guy who's saying that, where there's been no infidelity. There's been, in fact, they were actually in good shape and just would argue the odd time. But when they did, they'd get out of control, and they kind of got scared. And I've seen that like often enough, because, when you do what I do over the years, there are common patterns that I see. But anyway, so this trust is not necessarily something like an event has happened, like infidelity. And sometimes it is infidelity. And so it's tricky for a couple like that, because if there's been infidelity and they want to repair the damage that's been done there, I mean, whether it's the guy or the girl, let's just say it's the guy says, well, okay, you know, I promise that won't happen again. And she says, well, how do I know I can believe you? And therefore I can't trust you. And so it's tricky for him, because how do you prove the absence of something? In other words, how's he going to prove that he's not having an affair now, or that he won't have an affair in the future? You know, how is he going to prove the absence of something? Like, if you think about that, it's kind of crazy to even get what that would look like. You know, what does he do to prove himself? Okay, so this talk is really going to help people who are dealing with that. So if you've experienced infidelity, you've had that occur inside your relationship or your marriage, then this talk is for you. And it's going to be a little different, because many people, when it comes to, you know, trust and connection, and when I'm telling them how to build that, how to either get that back or to build that, they're thinking it's going to be some great big event, just like it could be a great big event that ruptures or disrupts that, like infidelity. You know, what kind of a great big event are we going to put in place to, you know, to move forward, to rebuild trust? No different from, you know, from the people who say we are completely disconnected and now we've got a sexless marriage and it's been sexless for years or several months. These people are wondering, okay, what kind of a great big thing is going to make this change here? Like, what are we going to have to do? And it's going to have to be really something big, because it occurs that the obstacle is so big, just like the infidelity that's happened. This obstacle now is kind of in the way, or can be in the way, or how do we heal from that? How do we move forward? It's also can be very big for couples who have been living under the same roof for years as roommates. It can get, for those people, it can be awkward. They can't even look at each other. So it can seem just as big an obstacle. So it's interesting. So this notion of trust, you know, like, what does that even mean? And I think like a simplified version is just that if I trust you, I trust that you care about me, that you care about my well-being, and that you're going to make my well-being your responsibility. Okay, I think that's pretty simple, a simple definition that we can all relate to. Now, in order for you as my partner to care about my well-being and to sort of understand what I need and want, then you to understand, you're going to have to understand my world, what matters to me, what I care about, what has me feel taken care of and safe. So you know, like that my partner would have my best interest at heart, that there's a sense of security and predictability, and that accompanies this trust. Okay, so that's kind of how, I guess that's how I would define trust. Some say that it's keeping your word. Well, that too. For example, if you make a promise to me and you're my partner, you make a promise to me and you break your promise, well, then I'm going to say, okay, you know, I don't trust you. I feel like I can't trust you again, because the breach has been that there was something there that was important to me, that you made a promise about and broke your word. So it says to me that, okay, you don't care about me. So it can look different ways, but here's the thing. I'm going to say more about like, how can we reestablish trust, or how can we establish trust, and what is it that causes trust? Okay. So, yes, we might think that it's being your word, and it's being faithful. Yes, it is those things, but I want to look at it from a science point of view, because many people have gone beyond the point of what to them occurs like no return. Like stuff has happened, nonsense has happened. So let me just say that maybe there's three stages of relationships, three stages of marriage. Okay, so if we start here and then move from here, I'll give a little bit of context for where I'm going in this conversation. Three stages of marriage. First stage of marriage is when, we're new to one another. There's lots of attraction, there's lots of excitement, there's lots of attention. It's characterized by infatuation, lots going on, lots of attentiveness, sense of adventure, sense of excitement, a little bit of fear, uncertainty. And when we look at the chemicals that are going on in our bodies when we first get together, there's like a lot of serotonin, there's a lot of dopamine, and there's a lot of oxytocin, and all of these hormones or chemicals rather, can cause well-being, happiness, kind of a sense of excitement, sense of trust. And when we are in that stage of marriage or relationship, it's all good. Everything is good. It's like we're wearing rose-colored glasses, and we don't notice stuff. We don't notice much that bothers us. We're constantly thinking about them and what they're doing, and we're going to pay a lot of attention to them. And we are on our best behavior, aren't we? When we're first new with somebody, we're on our best behavior, and we find ourselves compromising a lot. We'll go to movies, or we'll watch movies that we don't really like because this person that's fairly new to us that we like, and it's all new, we say, yeah, sure, let's watch that. But in our heart of hearts, we probably wouldn't watch it ourselves. We don't even like it. Or we'll do a lot of things that we don't really want to do, and not really, but we'll go along with it. Maybe you're going to have sex, and more often than not, it's not going exactly the way you wanted it to. Yeah, it's okay. You won't say anything. It's all good. Often I find that couples will come to me, and maybe 10 years in, and the husband says, gee, wow, like, she used to love watching movies with me. She used to love going three-wheeling in the mud. She used to love doing certain things with me, whatever it is. And now it's like she never did. It's like I feel tricked. And this is why. It's because when the couple first got together, it's because of these chemicals. We were feeling good, and it's like, that doesn't matter. We'll just go ahead. We end up doing things that we would not normally do, just to be with the other person, and we're having fun, and it's all good. And then after several years goes by, and those chemicals are not there anymore, and then kind of our true colors start to show, our morals, our values, what we do like, what we don't like. And then, you know, we don't have the time of day to go three-wheeling. We could care less about those movies, right? And then the truth comes out. And then and especially men will say, well, wait a minute, you loved that so much before. What happened? And it wasn't that she loved it so much before, but it was just that she was doing it because of all these chemicals. So, and this is very characteristic of that first, first stage of relationship. But I do hear that a lot where either partner, they feel tricked somehow. And that, like what happened to this person that I used to know? Like, where did they go? Like all the fun that we used to have doing these different things, and now she doesn't want to do them anymore. And that's the thing. That's the problem. Like when we don't understand some of the chemistry of love, then we can start to take things personally. So that's what can happen when we're under the influence of those chemicals. We can do things that we wouldn't normally do. Women often will say to me, in the beginning, he was so attentive, and now he doesn't even look at me when he talks. Well, yeah, that's what's going on. Those chemicals have decreased hugely. So we can't run on those anymore, right? So that's the first stage of relationship or marriage, is like this conflict stage. And now other relationship and marriage experts, they might use, I've heard maybe 5 or 6 stages. I'm going to keep it simple and keep it to 3. So first stage is honeymoon stage or infatuation stage, high attraction. Second stage is conflict. That's where we start to notice our differences. That's where we start to like, wow, you used to like those movies before. How come you don't like them anymore? What's wrong? What's going on? Well, she never did like them. She was just kind of going along with you, going along with things. Anyway, conflict, where we notice our differences. We maybe notice that what's important to my partner is not quite the same as what's important to me, or we'll get into arguments, we'll have disagreements. We're having difficulty, we're struggling one way or another for whatever reason. And then the third stage is like the authentic, deep connection stage. Now, I've heard it that 80% of all couples are kind of stuck or moving in and out, mostly into this second stage, conflict stage. And then 50% of those get divorced, and 30% are struggling in silence or not in silence with one another anyways, but they're struggling. So what about the other 20%? Well, the other 20%, maybe 5 to 10, 5 is the honeymooners. Those are the people that are still in the infatuation stage. And then that other 15% are the people that are in the deeply connected phase. Okay. So yeah, the idea is getting through that conflict phase and then into authentic, deeply connected phase. So what has us be connected? Because that's the big complaint that I hear from people, is like, we are disconnected. And so the term that people use most is this: they're disconnected, this lack of connection. So I want to look at, what's at the bottom of connection in the first place? What is that about? What's the biology of connected love? What's going on in our bodies, and what causes that, and what can we do to maintain that state ourselves, rather than waiting for our partner to be a certain way? because, you know, the conflict stage is really characterized by lack of trust and lack of connection. And so if you know, the deeply connected stage is characterized by trust and authentic sharing and a deep connection, then how do we do that, and how do we maintain that now that we don't have these chemicals you know, on our side working for us? Here's the thing. Studies have shown that when we are in that conflict or experiencing conflict, studies have shown, is done by marriage specialists, that if we experience one negative interaction, okay, that could be a fight, that could be a stonewall where somebody wants to talk about something and the other person just doesn't want to talk and they leave the conversation, or we feel like we can't even start a conversation. We just feel like we're being ignored. Something that's negative, you know, something that occurs as negative in the relationship, that to make up for one negative interaction or a negative event that happens, it takes 5 positives, you know, positive strokes or positive interactions. And so I talk about this in our retreat. And so you could kind of consider it like a bank account, which is what all us relationship specialists say. It's like a bank account, you know, for every pleasant and positive interaction you have, it's like making a deposit. And then when you have the fight, you make the big withdrawal. You know, when my kids were little, they used to say, oh, you want more money, Mom? Just go to the bank and put that card in there. It's like you put in a card and it's like unlimited money. Well, they didn't realize that you actually have to put some money in to that account before you can use the card. And it's the same with our relationship and marriage. You gotta put something into it, as according to specialists, so that when something nasty happens, you've got a base there. You've got something that will shield you from that negative. Otherwise, you go bankrupt pretty quickly. So we had just done a retreat a little while ago, and you know, we were talking about this, and one man said, well, who's an accountant? He said, well, okay, how do you reduce the debt? How do you reduce the debt? Really good question. How do you reduce the debt? If you're expecting or thinking, you know, that it's some great big thing, or you're expecting to hear some great big thing, how you reduce the debt, you're not going to hear that. You reduce the debt daily with a bunch of little things. And it's this bunch of little things, like a lot of small deposits, that can make up for when you have a real blowout or a conflict or even a disconnect. So, because at the bottom line, it's about getting connected and increasing your connection. So how you can increase your connection is by increasing the hormone called oxytocin, okay? A lot of studies have been done on this chemical. Let me explain what this chemical is. This chemical is known as the Cuddle chemical, the Love Hormone, the Trust drug. Gosh, there's probably a couple of others, and I'm just not thinking of them. So my background is chemical technology. So when I learned about this, of course, I'm all over this. Like, wow, you know, what is this chemical? What is this thing, this hormone? And so evolutionary biologists and psychologists and scientists are saying that when this chemical is present, then your chances of getting connected and feeling connected with your partner go up. Okay, bottom line, when you are feeling disconnected and you know, you're struggling in the relationship and you're not getting what you want and you don't feel happy, this chemical is at its all-time low. Okay, so what is this chemical? Yeah, the bonding chemical. Well, women secrete this hormone to great levels, high levels, when they're in labor and delivering a baby, and also when they're nursing, when their milk is let down. Very high levels of oxytocin. And I talk about this in my retreats. When my daughter was born and the nurse passed her to me, I remember thinking like, oh my God, like this baby's dead. Like, you go from a single woman to all of a sudden now you've got this baby to take care of. You're single and carefree, and even if you are in a married situation, you don't have kids, right? When the kids come, it's like, wow, you get really grounded. And but in that moment, I'm looking at this in this baby's eyes, and she's looking at me. Well, the very act of giving birth really raises a woman's oxytocin levels so that she bonds to this baby. Well, it's a darn good thing, because if there's no bonding between me and the kid, what keeps me there to take care of the kid in the first place? That is nature at its finest. That's what keeps me bonded to this baby. That's what keeps me caring for this baby. It's oxytocin. So oxytocin is really a cool chemical, because they've noticed that when there is a state of trust, when a person is trusting someone else, that their oxytocin is high compared to when they're in a non-trusting state. So I'll tell you about some studies that were done and by an economist. And the cool thing is that in my practice, I like to use different teachings from different areas. I like to use things from, teachings from biology or sociolinguistics, and economists. The Pareto Principle, which I talk about a lot in my work, the 80-20 rule, that was kind of discovered by an economist. That's where 20% of what you do gives you 80% of the results that you have. Well, that was kind of discovered and highlighted and distinguished by an economist. Well, there's a lot of studies that have been done with oxytocin. And these studies were done by economists, and they were looking at the area of trust. And so they used money and oxytocin, and they came up with some really interesting findings. So they had two groups of people, one group over here, one group over there, that did not know one another. And then what they did was they gave one group $10. And they were told that they had a partner that they couldn't see, but if they wanted to, they could give their partner a little bit of money for also participating in the experiment if they wanted to, and they didn't have to, but they could. And so some of them did give money and some of them didn't give money. But if they did give money, they were told that if whatever they gave would be tripled for the other person. And so anyways, it was interesting to see whether they did or they didn't give money. Those that gave money to this other group of people, they had noticed that oxytocin levels were higher for those who gave than those who didn't give. They also noticed when they took blood samples of those that were given money, they noticed that the oxytocin levels were higher for those that were given money that weren't given money. Okay. And they noticed that those with higher oxytocin levels would give more money back. So, you know, and I mean, I won't go into the details of the experiment, but what's cool about it is that they noticed that higher levels of oxytocin increased trust and increased generosity. Because they took a control group and then they gave them this money and then they tested what they did with it. Either they gave money or they didn't give money. Then they exposed that group to high levels of oxytocin by inhaling it into their nose, like a nasal inhaler, gave them a shot of oxytocin, and they noticed that they gave more money. Okay, so clearly oxytocin affects our sense of generosity and our sense of wanting to give or to do something for other people, for our partner in this case, if we're talking about relationship and marriage. And then when your partner gives to you, you want to give back. That's what they call the law of reciprocity. And that law of reciprocity is only there when oxytocin is present. They've tested the general population and they've found that there's a very small percentage, which is 5. And I think 5% of the population has very, very, very low oxytocin levels, and don't respond to oxytocin. Okay, so those would be your sociopaths. And then there's some other types of people in there too, where, let me see, where it could be people who have undergone such incredible trauma as children. And the group that I'm thinking of right now that comes to mind are sexually abused women, girls rather, young sexually abused people at a young age, like over and over and over. Very severely traumatized, sexually abused or abused, physically abused. And those people don't respond to oxytocin and don't produce it themselves. There's something there that's completely shut down. So, but, that's a very, very small number of the population where you've got just your sociopaths. And we notice that when people are sociopathic or diagnosed sociopaths or identified or classified as sociopaths, that what they are missing is empathy. They have no sense of how it feels for another person. Everything is about themselves. They're completely selfish. They don't give in any way to anyone else. So here's the thing. Is that we can build trust between us, and we can build our connection if we increase our oxytocin levels. So it's not like that trust causes oxytocin, it's that oxytocin enhances trust. Maybe it doesn't cause it, but it enhances it, okay? Because they're still looking at this, at all these studies. They're fascinated by it. And when it comes to the body, there's many different variables. There's not just one variable. So there's things that they just can't say for sure what causes, if a chemical causes any one thing, because that one chemical is working in conjunction with other things in the body. But basically, oxytocin is like the chemical that says, like, if you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. And that's oxytocin at play. And it rises when someone is kind. So when you're kind to your partner, their oxytocin level rises, and then they can be kind back to you. And this is simply how it works for 90% of the population. Now, there's another thing that's very interesting. They've done some studies with oxytocin and men and attractiveness, and how men are attracted to women, rather. Okay, so they've They've noticed that when a man's oxytocin level is higher, he is less apt to think that other women are attractive compared to his partner. In other words, when a man, let me see if I can get down to the details of the study. When a man has been together with a woman for 6 months or more, and she's the one for him, he loves her, the higher his oxytocin levels are, the less attractive he will think that other women are. Now, sometimes we think, this is what we think. We can think, oh, my husband is looking at other women. How can I stop my husband from looking at other women? Well, here's how you can stop your husband from looking at other women is make sure that his oxytocin levels are high. So how can you do that? Well, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I think that that's a really cool study in that oxytocin actually creates an unconscious bias toward our partner. Now, they don't notice this so much in women as they do in men, okay? Because men have lower levels of oxytocin than women do to begin with, okay? But oxytocin, it still acts the same way. Okay, so it's interesting because then this could be the mechanism behind monogamy. If we look at mating from an evolutionary biology perspective or point of view, really, men would be driven to sort of spread their seed everywhere to increase the species, but maybe it's that oxytocin is the check and the balance, and that has them not do that, and that has them actually stay with their partner, which really ensures the success of the family, because then he's putting his resources into his wife and his children. He's staying in one place rather than moving around and reproducing, with other women, right? So it could very well provide the mechanism behind monogamy. And so it provides a dual effect where it has us have our partner be more attractive to us, and then it also deters us from being interested in other people, and particularly men. Okay, so that's cool. So yeah, how do you increase oxytocin, or what are the conditions where oxytocin is higher or highest? Let's put it that way. Touching, kissing, hugging, sex is a big one. When we have sex, when we have orgasm, oxytocin goes through the roof. It goes very high. That will often explain how we want to kind of cuddle, and we feel very close after sex. We feel very connected after sex. That's why it's the oxytocin. I often joke about this in my retreats. That's what will have us meet somebody or be with somebody that we don't even know, have a one-night stand, and then we're hanging out with this person that we don't even know in bed for a weekend or for the night or whatever it is. It's that chemical. And it's that chemical that's at a very high level concentration when we are just newly with somebody, when we're dating, or even, and that can last for 6 months, for a year, even for a couple of years, right? That level of oxytocin is high. So we feel very connected and very close. So hugging, kissing, touching. And they've done studies where they've measured the blood, they've measured the concentration of oxytocin in the blood, and they found that, in fact, when people hug and touch and kiss, oxytocin goes up remarkably. So that is coaching that many couples will hear from relationship enhancement specialists, is like, hug your partner. That's why, okay, when you hug and when you touch and when you hug, oxytocin goes up, you feel connected, okay? Sex. here's the thing. So many men will come into my practice and they're like, man, she doesn't want to have sex with me. It's like, oh my God, I'm going crazy. So the coaching for the couple is to have more sex. And she says, well, have more sex. I can't get connected. I don't feel connected to him in order to be able to do that. So that's why foreplay is really great for women. It's because their oxytocin level is literally, it increases, which has them want to be closer to you, which has them trust you, which has them feel safe, which has them relax. Oxytocin is just it causes relaxation. It reduces stress. So that's why I tell men, like, I get it that, if you're doing without sex, don't get mad about that. Don't get angry about that. You guys as a couple can get yourselves into sex therapy where they do something, it's called Sense8 Therapy. And so what that is, and I have a friend who practices that. And what that is where the couple makes an agreement, they're going to be together and they're going to experience one another intimately without sex. How do they do that? Well, you touch, okay? They're touching one another, they're hugging, they're not going for the genitals or the breasts, they're not doing that. They're maybe massaging one another, just enjoying how one another feels, just engaging their senses without sex. When they do that, oxytocin levels rise, and then a woman can feel more comfortable to open up to a man. And that's the thing, is men often don't understand that piece, because there's a chemistry there that's got to happen inside of her, where her oxytocin levels are just not high enough for her to feel relaxed and comfortable. So she's shut down. So the man now is not, for him, he's driven by testosterone. And so for him, he has no issue having sex with her, and then his oxytocin will rise when he has an orgasm. But for her, she's got to feel connected to him first before she wants to have sex. How does he do that? How does he get her oxytocin levels up so that she even wants to do it? Through touch, through hugging, through talking. Another way you raise oxytocin levels is by looking into someone else's eyes. So often in the practice of Tantra, that will be something that they will recommend, is just gazing, where you're sitting down knee to knee and you're just looking at one another's in the eyes, and you're not saying anything, you're just gazing. You do that for 5 to 10 minutes, oxytocin levels will rise. Let's see, I got a whole list of things here that can raise oxytocin levels. Oh, speaking of touch, there are things called cuddle parties. And the first time I'd heard about this, I thought, wow, cuddle parties, that's sketchy. What's that, right? Where you get a group of people together. There's absolutely no sex. They just lie close and they cuddle, and like spooning. They're all kind of spooned in a line. It's kind of cool. Go onto the internet and enter in cuddle parties, and you'll see some photographs of that. What's happening is that while those people are laying there close together and cuddling, everybody's oxytocin levels are going up. Why would you want to have your oxytocin level go up? Well, like I said, it'll have you feel empathetic. It softens you with other people. It has you feel good in a social situation. It has you trust other people. It has you trust life. It relaxes you. It's very good for your health. Here's another thing that can raise oxytocin is acupuncture. A lot of people don't like acupuncture done maybe over their body, but you can even have oracle acupuncture, right? Where it can stimulate the synthesis and release of certain hormones, including oxytocin. So another thing that raises oxytocin is animals, pets, little puppies. I mean, if you look at the face of a little puppy, you just look into its eyes, or even if it's not a puppy, if it's your dog, they found that if you look into the eyes of your pet for 5 minutes, a dog, a cat, oxytocin levels will rise. The reason why you want higher oxytocin levels is that when your oxytocin is higher as individuals of this couple, then you can get connected with one another. Here's the opposite of connection, is when you've got that primitive part of your brain that's in fight, flight, or flee, where you're reactive. So if you find yourself feeling disconnected from your partner, you don't trust your partner, you're suspicious, you're doubtful, you want to raise your oxytocin levels rather than just waiting for them to not have the affair that maybe they had a long time ago, and you're worried that they're going to have another one, or you're doubting the stability of your relationship and you're waiting for it to get stable somehow. Increase your oxytocin levels and that of your partner. And so I'm telling you, this is how you can do it, right? Even approaching your partner, give them a neck rub, increases their oxytocin, has them want to be with you, has them trust you, rather than them thinking suspicious thoughts or wanting to fight. I was coaching a couple last week, and it was interesting. I was talking to this fellow, and he said, "Oh yeah, we had a fight," and she was bringing up something from the past, okay, some kind of a bad memory for her where something happened between them, and so she had a lot of charge around this memory. And he said to her, "Look at me," and she said, "No, I don't want to look at you." Interesting. A couple of things going on there is that he was instinctually on the right track by wanting to get her to look at him and make eye contact. And yet what was going on for her, she was in a state of mind where she was mad, and maybe she wanted to stay mad, and she didn't want to be connected to him. She just wanted to be mad. But if she would have just looked at him, that's a way to end a fight. Just look at each other, stop talking and look each other in the eyes, and stop talking and give yourselves a chance to get reconnected. And you will experience that yourself if you're listening, and just try it, see what happens. You start to kind of go down a slippery slope, make an agreement. Just try it, make an agreement. Everybody stop talking and just look at each other and see what happens. And notice that whatever it was that you were attached to there, that you were getting upset about, you can kind of calm down, and you're not quite so positional and so attached to that. So yeah, so animals, so puppies, I'm somebody that's experienced menopause, and whatever, before it's like, whatever, dogs are great, cats are great, but whatever. Well, I had much higher levels of oxytocin and estrogen and certain hormones. And then you go through menopause, and you do have a drop in certain hormones. And so now what I do is I keep pictures. I got pictures of dogs. And I will go onto the internet and look up pictures of puppies. And that's one reason why the kitten YouTubes, YouTube movies rather, videos, the kitten YouTube videos and the dog YouTube videos are very popular, because when people watch them, they go, "Oh, you're so cute. Oh my God, oh, look at that." Their oxytocin levels are going up. So keep some cute pictures of puppy dogs around. It works. It certainly works for me. If I'm feeling like a little down or negative or disconnected, separated, isolated, because that's a characteristic of low oxytocin, is when you feel separated. I will go looking for some pictures of puppies and dogs. And even when I go for a walk, I make a point of, as the dogs are passing, I'll talk to the owner and can I pet your dog? They have done studies on human beings and dogs. After 5 minutes of patting a dog, both the human being and the dog's oxytocin levels both go up. So that's one of the things, they'll bring dogs into hospitals because it's healing. Oxytocin is healing. And the reason why is because of human connection, where we feel connected and we feel safe and we feel like we trust. It's a super important chemical. So yeah, staring into your dog's eyes, massage. Massage is proven to really raise oxytocin levels. Now, light massage is preferable over deep tissue massage. So a couple can go have a massage together or give one another a massage, right? But if you both go together and you get a massage, laying side by side, everybody's oxytocin levels will be raised. And so what that means is you're going to be less reactive to one another. You're going to be more trusting, just feel connected. Listening to music, slow tempo music is best, soothing music. If you sing for 30 minutes, oxytocin will go up. So a couple could listen to music together, just sit together, hold hands and listen to music. Your oxytocin will go up. Now, here's the thing. When we have little kids and careers and we get busy, have you noticed that all of those things are things that go by the wayside? And then couples say, well, how can we get reconnected? Well, I'm telling you, if you're waiting for some kind of a great big thing, you don't have to do that. Get that oxytocin flowing, raise those oxytocin levels, and you will notice, you'll look at your partner and with a different set of eyes. You'll be less suspicious, less doubtful, feel more connected, feel more trusting, want to be kind to them, they be kind to you. Yoga also stimulates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is a certain part of the nervous system that just has you calm down from stress. Okay, so deep breathing, socializing, talking to other people whenever you can, hanging out with friends and family is a great way to raise oxytocin. I work with so many couples and they say, we used to have couple friends and we don't anymore. We don't spend any time with couples. Get together with some couples, have a Sunday, dinner party night. You could form a dinner party club, where each couple takes turns having the dinner party at their home. You could do that once a month or once every 3 weeks is great. It was something that I used to do and I absolutely loved it. Just to socialize with other people raises your oxytocin. Now, women, if you're a woman listening to this, honestly, you need to hear this, that when you get isolated and you stop socializing, your oxytocin levels are low. You are born to socialize. You're born to get together with other women and just, have a laugh or share some troubles talk. It's when you don't do that you will notice that you don't feel good. You don't feel connected even within yourself. Eating food together. Eating food stimulates receptor sites in our mouth. And then in our gut, when the food hits our gut, hormones are secreted that actually lead to oxytocin production. And so when you eat, and then when you eat with other people, you're socializing, then you're really creating higher levels of oxytocin. So it's interesting, so if you're a couple, you have a family and you're all so busy and you're not eating together, put a new rule in place where you eat together as a family at the same table as often as you can, and just do what you can. I know people are playing basketball and soccer and all that stuff, but here's the thing. You want to create the environment so that connection happens rather than waiting for something to happen, because this is how it happens, just in the small events. call someone, connect on the phone. Here's another thing that increases oxytocin is give a gift. So it's interesting, you know, the 5 love languages. One of them is I don't know the term actually, but gift giving. When you give someone a gift, that person receives the gift, their oxytocin goes up. But did you know that when you give, your oxytocin also goes up? So that's really cool, right? So pay attention to that. Sometimes we think, oh, well, you know, I got to wait for birthday or Christmas. No, just give a little gift. It could be a chocolate bar wrapped up in some paper, something simple. It's that generosity is kind of, it comes from oxytocin, right? Higher levels of oxytocin it wants us to be generous. And when we receive a gift, our oxytocin goes up, and then we in turn want to give back, okay? Dancing. So dancing increases oxytocin. So Jacqueline, if you're watching this, Jacqueline, she's a friend of mine, she loves to dance. So yeah, so that increases oxytocin. So there's lots of things that you can do as an individual and as a couple to increase your connection and increase your levels of trust, okay, and your ability to trust. Don't wait for some great big thing to happen. These are things that you can do every day to repair. You know, if you've had a breach of trust and you're wondering, you know, how can I ever trust again? This is how you do it. You protect your relationship and your marriage by maintaining a good, solid, strong connection. How you do that is if you know, these things that I mentioned will increase your oxytocin levels that will have you feel connected. There's a science behind all of this. So, and most people, you know, they don't take too much heed in that, but there's a reason why these specialists say hug. If you hug and you just hang there for, you know, 8 seconds or 6 seconds, I mean, you don't have to do anything. You don't even have to talk, just hug. When your partner comes home from work every day, you can make a routine, you know, that we're going to hug or that we're going to kiss and hug in the morning when we wake up. And that's the first person you see is your partner. And maybe it isn't, you know, but when you do see them. So talking, okay, texting. When some attention is paid to you, your oxytocin goes up. They've even noticed, that's why Facebook is so popular, because they've noticed that when a person is communicating with their loved one, let's say on their page or by messenger, their oxytocin goes up. So it's cool. So there's lots of ways that you can increase oxytocin to safeguard your connection and your marriage. And that's it. And I've given you a nice big list. So massage, touch, cuddling, kissing, sex, acupuncture, eating together, socializing, talking, eye gazing, looking at one another in the eye. I mean, God, I don't know, did I forget anything that I mentioned there? I mentioned a whole bunch of things. So put them into your daily practices and your daily activities with one another. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'm signing off, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.